One of the problems with not growing up in church but reading a lot about religion on my own is that I don't really feel at home in any one tradition. One of the advantages is that there isn't any single tradition that I feel any allegiance to. Generally speaking, I've gravitated towards non-denominational and Baptist churches. I know that there's no such thing as no liturgy, but the less liturgical a church feels, the better I seem to fit in. Really, the kind of church that I would most fit into doesn't seem to exist, but that's a post that I'll probably never get to. That much said, I've been asked why I don't just throw in with the Baptists a number of times. Sure, I've got my idiosyncrasies, like thinking that Matthew was written in Hebrew and that the deuterocanonical books are inspired, but the Baptists are famously open-minded about all of that kind of stuff. As long as I'm not preaching, they'll probably let the occasional reference to 2 Maccabees or quote from Matthew in Hebrew slip past them. Most of the time, that won't make much of a difference anyway. It's always strange to me that a group like the Baptists is so intent on freedom of religious expression, and yet they struggle and fight to maintain a few distinctives. Believers' baptism, sola scriptura, and the independence of congregations have gone beyond slogans, beyond identity, even beyond dogma for many in this camp, and I don't really understand why. There's a certain rhetoric behind believers' baptism that I can get behind. I don't think there's any magic in baptism, and there's no sign that getting baptized as a baby impacts the person unless they know they were baptized. This strongly implies that baptism in and of itself does nothing. In other words, I agree with them that the method and mode and time of baptism is liturgical orthopraxy, not universal orthopraxy. It's the declaration that goes along with it. It's the leap from infant baptism doesn't guarantee the soul of the child to infant baptism is heretical that I can't follow. Lots of things don't guarantee our souls, and we do them anyway. Having pastors doesn't guarantee the soul of the church, yet we have pastors anyway. Reading the Bible doesn't guarantee the soul of the reader, yet we read the Bible anyway. Singing hymns doesn't guarantee the soul of the singer, yet we sing them anyway. Don't misunderstand me. If there were a particular reason for a particular group to move from infant baptism to believers' baptism, I don't really care what a particular church does in that regard. I don't think it really matters what a church does regarding this, so long as they set a standard. There might have been a point to it back in the 14th and 15th centuries, when there was widespread belief that there really was something magical about baptism, but those days have pretty much moved on. While it may still be the official teaching of Catholics or Lutherans that baptism causes some kind of change to the person's soul, when pressed, most of the thoughtful Lutherans and Catholics I've met hold this more as a slogan than an actual belief. What I find interesting is that Baptists have had to invent new ordinances to fill the vacuum that infant baptism left. While we're pretty sure that baptizing infants doesn't change the infant in any meaningful way, one thing that's certain is that having a ceremony where the parents and congregation promise to bring the child up together in the faith does change the community. Among the Catholics and Lutherans, this is infant baptism. Among the Baptists, since they've all but declared infant baptism to be heretical, this becomes a baby dedication event. This is where the Baptist identity around sola scriptura really starts to show its cracks, though. Any self-respecting Baptist pastor will gladly explain that there is no infant baptism in the Bible, and thwart any attempt to appeal to tradition with sola scriptura. I have bad news for those pastors, though. There's no baby dedication in the Bible either. This same logic applies to many other things that end up being standard across Baptist churches: the use of pews, the use of a baptistry, a separate office for the pastor, and on this could go. This goes to show something that's universal among American Christians, but especially prominent among Baptists. Slogans are used when and how they are useful to identify with the group and abandoned as soon as they get in the way or become inconvenient to the political agenda. As someone who grew up outside the church, learning theology alongside other areas of personal study, it always hurts to see the study of deep subjects turned into political talking points. This happens in many areas of study. Economics, biology, and even math have been twisted by politics. When an area of study has become a series of slogans for political identification, the field inevitably suffers. We can see this in religion, and in particular among the Baptist congregations. The Southern Baptist Convention cannot bring themselves to disfellowship those that have allowed and perpetrated abuse against children. This very clearly isn't about seeking the God who sends his messengers to children and then gives those guardians immediate access to his throne room. Matthew 18 verse 10. If these people really feared God, they would see the abuse of children as the most pressing issue. These children's angels are watching and reporting on everything they vote in their meetings, even though they very clearly do not believe it. It was these kinds of Baptists that used to lead me to my first slogan: I'm not a Christian, I believe in the Bible. As I've grown up, I've met more people from other traditions who are clearly sincere about their belief, and I don't mean to offend them. I have definitely reached the point in my life where I am comfortable saying, I'm not a Baptist, I believe in the Bible. I know that the Bible is true, that the words of Christ are to my benefit, and that I need to listen to these words carefully and completely. The abuse of children cannot stand. The angels that watch them have immediate and unfettered access to the throne room of God, and they will tell on me. That does bring up the final point that Baptists tend to identify themselves by: the independence of their congregations. The local congregation does not answer to anyone. As long as they can keep the donations coming in, they can and will do anything they like without repercussions from any other congregation. A small number of congregations do this out of a sincere belief that this is the right way to organize a church. The majority do this as a means to escape accountability, though. Because there's no higher authority for them to answer to, they are free to abuse the children in their congregations with near impunity. I would be more interested in identifying with Baptists if they didn't seem to take their identity as Baptists so seriously. When I point out that they have been inconsistent about their application of sola scriptura, the reaction is almost universally indignation. When I point out that there's no difference between baptizing an infant and dedicating an infant, the reaction is almost universally derision. If Baptists were typically open to criticism, then I might join in with them and see how far I could go. As it stands, I'm simply stuck believing in the Bible rather than becoming Baptist.